when I say it is an actual honor to be sitting with you guys, and I know you said you don't want to be called a hero, but the work that you do is unimaginable. Like, none of us in this room have as much experience as the both of you going inside a place that is, I mean, it's unimaginable. I mean, you can't even imagine going inside somewhere like that. So that's why we're going to start off with our first question being, what made you want to volunteer for this work, knowing your safety is not guaranteed?
So the two main parts is, one, I'm Palestinian. So the Palestinian cause has been something that has been in my household since I was in diapers, since as far as I can remember. The second thing is, I went into healthcare with the purpose and intention of eventually doing some type of humanitarian work. Maybe subconscious that was because I was Palestinian and I knew that eventually it would be my people that needed me, but I didn't imagine it to be to this extent. I got to a certain point, is at first, in the beginning of October, I thought that this was another quick 2-week, 3-week thing, but it became very clear that it wasn't. So day after day, you see these pictures, you see these videos, you hear the horrific things that are happening, and I'm here, safe. And just like Dr. Thet has said, they're Palestinian, I'm Palestinian. They look like me, they talk like me, the only difference is I live here and they live there. So I felt, in lack of better words, I felt like a fraud being here. Genuinely, I would get up, go to work, and the hospital's here. I have every luxury that I can do. And my people, other human beings, are being slaughtered. They are denied the most basic needs of humanity. To be honest with you, I had to go. It wasn't like I could not breathe being here. All I could do was think about how I'm going to get in and do what I can, to the point where I remember when Dr. John and Dr. Thad were giving a panel at the Mosque Foundation in Bridgeview, which is 2.5 hours from here. They were actually listening to their panel, and what they did and what they went through was the final nudge that solidified my decision is I have to go. And I drove everyone crazy trying to get in, so it was an easy decision.
Jazakumullah khairan, thank you so much. And John?
A little bit. This is 1933 for me, meaning that I could not attend to the level of this. I want my grandchildren to know that at some place, at some time, my grandfather was there. I don't know what the end is going to be. I won't see the end, but I want them to be able to say at some time, my grandfather tried to help.
All right. Our next question. Did you experience a lack of medical supplies while working in Gaza? If so, how did that impact the quality of care that you were able to provide? We'll go back to John.
Well, it's a simple one, yes. And it negatively affected it. I don't mean to be silly about that, but the answer, and Hamza alluded to it earlier, which is that you do what you can do. You try what you do what you can do, and if you can't do that, then you really shouldn't be there, because you won't have what you want.
And just like Dr. John mentioned, and how I mentioned, like our team brought in 77 bags of equipment and medical supplies. It was, because it was a giant sponge, what we brought in was a drop of water. I mean, it probably was used up that day in the grand scheme of things. So it basically impacted every aspect of what I do as a nurse, or what anyone would do in a hospital setting.
To go more specific, so when you guys ran out of supplies, what did you substitute it with?
Whatever you had available. Like I said, we had a patient that needed a wound vac. A wound vac is a device where you literally would seal off the area and it would create basically suction, just seal off the entire area. That's how I describe it. So we had to just rig up anything that we could find. So we went and raided Central Supply, and we looked for literally like just film, and we got random tape. This is meant to be sterile, but we stay as sterile as we can. We didn't have soap or water, any disinfectant wipes, so we would get really crappy gauze that would break apart in your hand and use whatever tap water we had to clean our patients. For sheets, we were cutting up old isolation gowns and putting them underneath. And if you guys don't know anything about isolation gowns, the material is awful. That's not suitable for you to sun.
All right. So, what did a typical medical team look like?
There really is no typical medical team. The World Health Organization emergency medical teams coordinate the activity in Gaza. They work from what is called a cluster. In that cluster, the organizations get together, particularly the hospitals and stuff, and say what they need. They then put out a call to the various organizations on the outside. We need a neurosurgeon, we need an orthopod, we need a nurse, we need this, we need that. And then the individual NGOs get together, or they don't get together. Individual NGOs each essentially say, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, I'll bring this person, I'll bring that person in. So there's no typical medical team. This isn't like going somewhere. This is fulfilling, trying to coordinate and fulfill needs.
Basically what Dr. John said. So our team was 3 ICU nurses, an anesthesiologist, and 5 surgeons. But every team went in, there was a team of 20 from another organization. Some as little as 4 or 5. So Dr. John said it best.
All right, this is going to be a very, interesting question. At any of the facilities you worked at, did you witness Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or any other Palestinian militants using the hospitals as a base of operation, storing weapons, launching or firing weapons? And did you witness any militant infrastructure connected to the facilities like the tunnels?
I'm probably better to answer that because I've been in more often and in more places, and I understand the nature of the question, and the simplest of all the answers is no. Simple of all the answers is no, and I would defy you to find me a medical person that has, an international medical person has been in that has seen anything to that effect. It just doesn't take away from the tunnel system, which everybody and their sister knew existed, including every single member of the Israeli Defense Force. So are they there? No questions about it. Are they stuck on a ship for hospitals as a control center? No. And no international medical personnel has seen any of it.
My answer is no as well. Dr. John stated perfectly, but I will take it one step further to the point where I did not even see law enforcement security. I didn't see a single firearm when I was there. Thankfully, I didn't even have to experience the Israeli forces there either, but to the point where security in our dorm where we were living was the 17-year-old that lived on the compound. And then in the hospital, there was a small security incident where the patient's family got into one of the nurses, and when they called security, they were like 19-year-olds that just came and just de-escalated them.
I want to make sure you understand there is no police force. They were targeted. So all official defense personnel, security personnel would never admit to that. You will see armed men on top of like trucks that come in. You might have seen pictures of this, Iron Man on top. Remember, Hamas was the political organization that controlled controlled Gaza for 17 years. It would be like being in Chicago and saying, if I'm going to get a nice position, I need to be a member of the Democratic Party. Well, you did. You do. So that the ministers and the directors of the hospital may have been associated with Hamas. No one doubts that. They weren't fighters. They were bureaucrats. So that's, you should keep that, when people pepper you with that, you should keep that in mind.
Were there times when specialists were not available? And if so, how did the team handle cases outside of their specialty?
Dr. John will answer that better than me because he's been there multiple times in multiple places. But for us, 110%, and that was every single day, every single minute, every single hour. So at the European, when I was there, we had, like I said, 30,000 people in the compound, and they were at, I think the figure was about 1,000 patients in a 250-bed hospital, 6 ORs, and unfortunately, most of the time, we would only have 3 or 4 running because, at most, usually there was 1 or 2 because either there wasn't enough anesthesiologists, there wasn't enough surgeons, there wasn't enough equipment. Like, I don't have OR experience, but they were so short-handed that they asked me to fill in for 2 days. So I went in, they taught me how to scrub in like 4 minutes. They said, these are what these instruments do, just when I point to it, hand it to me. And I would sit there in the OR and go, oh, okay, here you go. And I, at one point, played the role of like an assistant anesthesiologist. So you do what you can, and absolutely there was never enough specialists for anyone, really.
The one good thing about surgeons, not the one good thing about surgeons, a good thing about surgeons, is that they're all multiply trained. So they may be a subspecialist in gastrointestinal. Our colleague that went in with me was the head of bariatric surgery at University of Illinois. There wasn't much bariatric surgery needed to be done in Gaza. He also was a trauma trained person. All of the surgeons are multiply trained. So that the shortage wasn't in surgeons. The shortage was in everybody below the surgeon. So scrub nurses, anesthesiology, enough diesel to keep the things going. I'll give you one quick example. Nasser Hospital is the biggest hospital, second biggest hospital in Gaza, the biggest hospital in the middle. The ER, if you took this room and cut it in half and then squared it off, is as big as the ER, they would get 4 multiple trauma episodes. Now, in OSF hospital, multiple trauma is maybe 6. There's a bus crash and we're going to mobilize them because there's going to be 18 patients that come in, 10 of which have whiplash. This multiple trauma are 50 people brought in by 75 people into a room just the size I put up to you. The people who are taking care of them are third-year medical students who have had no clinical training, in addition to the couple ER docs that were in Shifa and had worked every single solitary day for 5 months. So if somebody asks about quality of care, it's there, but think about it.
Next question from the audience is, what do you guys think of Hamas?
I'm unable to answer the question. Of course, Hamas is a political organization. I'll tell you, let me flip that. I'll tell you what the Palestinians in Gaza think of Hamas. They hate it. They understand the necessity of it to get a job, just as I told you earlier. But what's happened to them, secondary to what happened in October, is hated by 100% of them. So that's all I know.
So I'm Palestinian, I'm Muslim, and I've been to Gaza and it's stamped on my passport. I'm going to differ from this question.
do you foresee a political solution being possible now or in the future?
I'm not a politician. I mean, yesterday the vote came out from the Israeli government, 68-9, essentially that Israel will never allow a two-state solution. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and only myself. Under what I have known my entire life and what I'm witnessing with my own eyes, I don't think that with the current government structure that we have here or in Israel, potentially in Al-Aqsa, that something drastic has to change globally in order for this to happen. I don't have an answer for that.
I guess I'm not sure what a political solution versus what is. There's not much left to destroy. There's still 1.5 million people that could be displaced or killed. The bombing will stop. It always does. It has to stop. The problem here is the bombing will stop. It has to. It will. It always will. The humanitarian access will be opened. The question is neither of those. The question is, what will be the governance authority afterwards? That's why this hasn't ended by now. The question will be, what will be the governance authority afterwards? And anybody who tells you they know that is lying to you. So, yeah, there will be a solution. I guess they'll call it a political solution because killing will stop eventually. But what's going to happen and how the administration starts are going to be and what are we going to be able to do? That's a question that nobody knows.
Have you guys ever seen any IOF soldiers? Israeli occupation soldiers?
So when I went in March, and I went through the Egyptian border, the Rafah border. So at the time when I went, it was the Egyptian authorities, and then the 8 checkpoints that I went through in Egypt were all Egyptian authorities. And then during our route from the border to the hospital, and then even when we went to the refugee camps, the routes that they took us on were strategically designed to where we avoided all military areas. So I personally, during my assignment, I mean, I did see some tanks in the distance from one of the camps I was at, but other than that, I did not actually physically encounter anyone.
In March, I was one of the first 2 humanitarians permitted to go north of Gaza. And to do that, we did have to cross 3 checkpoints with Israeli forces. And so I interacted at those checkpoints with them. And if the question is, was there a problem interacting with them at those checkpoints, the answer was no. They said go left, you went left. They said go right, you went right. There was literally no talking back. Once we got through there, we had a little drone that followed us the rest of the way, so we didn't need much more stopping after that.
Was there an increase in non-trauma related patients, cases like heart attacks?
So what we forget, and what is not emphasized enough, is although there is, in my opinion, a genocide and ethnic cleansing on the ground, and the level of traumas and bombings and patients coming in every single day, what we forget is that your average, anywhere in the world where the hospital sees heart attacks, they see patients varying from a number of different diseases, non-conflict related. So and that was the fear when COVID happened, is that if we overload the healthcare system, your basic cases will be neglected as well. So yeah, I mean, you're having C-sections, you're having live births, I witnessed cases that were like Hep A, jaundice, patients who were on dialysis couldn't get their dialysis, so they were dying. That's what indirect deaths or non-conflict related deaths are, and that's why they're expected to be so high, is that the stress and the destruction on the healthcare system neglects all these people. And we were talking to patients who weren't taking medications, life-saving medications for months due to them not having resources, not having facilities or hospitals to go to anymore. Cancer patients, there are no facilities anymore. There's no more chemo. So, big scheme, basically everyone's affected.
The non-communicable diseases can lay low for a long time. The figure that I heard, that I'll just share with you, I don't know what's veracity, is that there were 900 children in Gaza under 16 years of age with type 1 diabetes. There was no insulin in Gaza. No insulin after a while. So, for the past 6 months, those 900 children, if there were that many, have received no insulin, which means a significant number of them will be dead by now. So did we see them? No, it's dangerous to come. You don't jump in an Uber and go to the hospital. So it's dangerous to go to the hospital. So if my blood pressure's up, that's silent, right? Who knows if it's 240 over 150 or 180 over 100? Who knows? Who cares? I'm trying to eat. I'm trying to protect my children. So it's there, and it'll come back, and it'll get figured out after the bombing stops and people actually get back in. But it's real.
Now, have you guys faced any injuries, physically or mentally, while coming back from Gaza or being there?
No. So thankfully, me and our entire delegation that was there, no one was harmed or injured, and everyone made it out. Mentor safely made it out safely. In terms of mental, I can't answer that yet. Maybe I'll find out in a few years. I know for a fact that the level of PTSD and trauma related to this is going to haunt the population for decades, and anyone who's been there knows the level of, the level of mental strain that it puts on you.
While in Gaza, people with mental trauma, were you guys able to treat them at home?
We actually were able, Med Global, in partnership with a group called MiWi, began a program of community-based, sensory-based mind-body work. With three groups of people. One was staff our staff. One was healthcare providers who had come from the north, and one was a group of refugees in a small tent, and it had to do with mind-body work, essentially breathing, coloring, doing things like that. It was absolutely well received. We were planning to repeat it again in May. In May, my colleagues and I were turned away at the Rafah border. That was the day that the Israelis took over. So we've begun to do basic psychosocial mental health work.
So every day, when we were on the compound, there was thousands of children here. So every single day they were having the volunteers and refugees and any extra volunteer staff that was there. They were doing small activities for the kids every day, and there was social workers and counselors volunteering, teachers, anyone who really would. But me and myself directly, that's not my scope. I did what I could, but I didn't participate in that.
Now, we obviously know that electricity was on and off. And when it was off, what would you do with your, communicating with your families, with communicating with your colleagues if they weren't in the same area as you? What did you do with that electricity? And then, if there was no electricity, how would it would it ever be powered back on? And if so, how?
When we went in January, the day we went in, the Wi-Fi was shut down by the Israelis for the next week. I had nothing to do with us going there, it just happened to be the time. It was always being prepared for another assault. The electrical grid has been down for years, that hasn't worked for years, so it's all generators and solar-powered paneling and hospitals and stuff like that. They put the solar-powered panels, of course, on the roof, and as you might imagine, one of the first targets of the drones were the solar-powered panels. So, but the grid itself has been worthless for 15 years.
So I was only stationed at the European Gaza hospital for my 2 weeks. We had power the entire time, but I think 2 to 3 times a day it would shut off and then the power would restart. But it was only down for approximately 15 to 30 seconds every time. Wi-Fi, we would get lucky. I mean, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. It really depended on the time of day. When there was increased activity in the area, we had no service, so we called our families whenever we could, really.
Just as a side of that, all the teams have sat phones that they have available to them in case there really is an emergency. Now, remember that if they really wanted to, the Israelis could shut the satellites down too, but they managed to leave the sat phones up and running.
Were there times you feared for your life? Obviously, the whole time you were there, you were probably fearing for your lives, but were there times where a bomb was so close to you that, you were so scared another one was going to be dropped on top of you, or anything like that?
I mean, the obvious answer is yes. You're in a war zone where bombs are being dropped every however many seconds, and the entire 2 weeks I was there, I'm sure you've all heard of the Zanana, the drone that's always circling in the sky. So there was not a second of my 2 weeks that I didn't hear it. Every single night, approximately 8 p.m., the bombings would intensify, and they would go on until 8 o'clock in the morning or so. And when I tell you that some of them would literally shake the earth underneath you, now I can confidently say I can sleep through a bomb, because after the first few days you get so tired that you just go to sleep. But we would literally wake up in the middle of the night, and we were a group of 5 in one little small dorm, so on the floor. You would awaken to literally the entire building shaking, and you wake up and you still feel the shaking, the windows rattling, and you kind of just wait, and then a few more seconds later you'll hear a secondary. And this went on every single night for 2 weeks, and this was when the activity near Rafah, near where I was at a minimal. So I can only imagine what it's like at its peak.
Let me just add two things to that. The comment about the drone is absolutely correct. You hear it 24 hours a day, every day, and anybody who knows drones understands that drones are made to be silent. So this was a purposeful decision to have this level of drone activity with noise, because drones are made to be silent killers. The second thing is the bombing picks up at night, goes all through the night, indiscriminately. And I just want to mention one thing, because it's important when you hear this stuff about deconfliction. The reason there's so many people in the hospital and in the courtyards is because the hospitals are supposedly deconflicted. Now, we know that's not true, but they are. And this is why you get all these tens of thousands of people there. But to understand what deconfliction is, if this end of this stage is the hospital perimeter and they say that's deconflicted, the end of that row isn't. So it is clear that can get bombed and this isn't supposed to. And you have some 17-year-old kid or 18-year-old kid in Tel Aviv who's on the TV making the decisions on the coordinates. And so that's what happens. That's why people feel, they don't feel safe, but they feel safer inside than they do out there. And in point of fact, it's proved not effective. Let's see what I did.
with all that we've heard and seen the IDF doing to the people in Gaza, what would you call the IDF? How would you describe them?
In the Second World War, at the Nuremberg trials, at the end of the Second World War, at the Nuremberg trials, the number one defense that the higher-ups had was they were just following orders. This will be the same thing. This will be the same thing you hear now, except for one thing: they don't deny that they're trying to destroy Gaza from one end to the other. What would I call them? I'm not sure. I have a whole bunch of swear words that have existed within my life that are appropriate now. Something more.
So, I'm Palestinian. My answer is relatively clear, but like I said, in my opinion, the number of international laws that have been broken since the 77 years of occupation, the words that I would use is the Israeli occupation forces. I would describe them in my personal opinion, and I may be held accountable for this now, but history will be the judge in the future, and that's what I'm banking on, is that they are 100%, in my opinion, the true terror entity in this. Nazi Germany and so on, eventually 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years later, the world looks back and history goes and says, how did this happen? Well, this is our proof as why this happens. That's my personal take.
Now, this is a question from the audience. From a medical perspective, would you classify what you're seeing? Is it called a genocide?
Genocide isn't a medical definition. Genocide is an international law definition, and the activity in Gaza right now certainly qualifies as such. There's not a question about that.
So, another question from the audience. What are ways we can get involved to help in person?
That's a question I've been asking myself every day since I got back, is how can I contribute more? It's been 9, close to 10 months now, and I know fatigue is starting to settle in for some people, and I know it gets exhausting with the advocacy all the time, but speak out. Don't be afraid. Educate whoever you can. If you have the excess, if you have money that you can donate. I know that sometimes we're nervous to give our money because the uncertainties of when this is getting in. But regardless, if PAMA wasn't funded, if MedGlobal wasn't funded, we wouldn't have been able to get on the ground so quickly. We wouldn't have been able to do our jobs. And on top of that, there will come a day when eventually this stops, and we can't wait around until that day to start collecting what we need. The floodgates will open one day, and we have to get everything in the day of. And we have to take advantage of these opportunities when they come. So, donate what you have, advocate, vote. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what specifically to do, but just contribute in whatever way you can.
I'll give you 2 specifics that if you have the availability. Go to Washington next week where Netanyahu is there.
Yes.
And make sure you're in the truth. Or I'm sure there'll be something in Peoria, but wherever you can, this lunatic should know that at least the people in the United States don't want him here.
Yes.
Second thing is, be ready to come to Chicago when the Democratic National Convention is there. They need to understand that they're not going to get off either. I understand, and God knows I don't want Trump in the White House. But the Democrats Trump is who he is, and he's been that way, and he's been as predictable as I am bald. The disappointment here is with the Democratic Party, and they need to understand that. So come to Chicago, I'll buy you all a good pizza.
All right, so this is a question for Hamza. Have you, because we already know that Dr. Kahler has gone to many other crises around the world, have you ever worked in any other war conflicts besides Gaza?
No, I haven't. It was always on my agenda and my to-do list to eventually get into humanitarian work eventually, but Gaza was my first experience in a war-torn environment, or really that nature. And the fact that it's probably, and what I heard, at least from the ground, of people that I met there who have been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, is that this is the worst that they've ever seen it. And I remember when I was at the border getting in, I ran into one of the, I think, UN guys, and he had been doing this for, I think, 30 years, and he was asking us about the previous experience, and when I told him, he's like, essentially, good luck, this is the worst I've ever seen in my entire 30-year career. So this was my first experience, and it was one that I will never forget, even if I tried. I would, well, obviously will not.
I was asked today about, by a reporter, about how did the doctors get prepared to go in to that type of situation. He actually meant it a little bit more broader, but to that type of situation, we're talking about this. And the answer was that, and this happens a lot, I don't know if there's any medical students in the room? Any residents?
Any doctors?
All right. Anyway, if I'm speaking at a medical school, they'll always ask, well, what can we do? What do we do now? Well, the answer is finish your education. Because that's number one, finish your residency. The days of people like me just showing up are done. There's educations now around global health. Years ago, when I was in medical school, if you had something going on, I'd just be like 5 people there. There's now 500 people there. All right. So finish your education. But what I told the reporter was that you can get it. You need to be educated. You need to be skillful at what you're being trained in, but you can't prepare yourself for something like this until you're in it. The experience. So it's called Freire. Pablo Freire talks about praxis, which is knowledge in action. And it's a dialectic. It changes after, as you move forward, you get more of both. For something like this, though, you can't prepare it until you experience it, and once you experience it, you can't forget it.
Throughout your time in Gaza, what is the memory that stands out to you the most? Huh? No, what memory stands out the most while you were there?
Honestly, for me, it's the kids. So when I was there, like I said, the compound was filled with thousands of children, and where we were staying was the school of nursing. They had transformed it into a refugee camp. So from the second we got there, pulled into the compound, the vehicle that we were in, the 2 vehicles that were just got ambushed by like 3 or 4 dozen kids. And radiating smiles. They're running up to you, talking to you, wanting to get to know your name. And then once they found out, like you speak Arabic, they're even more excited. They want to know everything about you. And obviously it's been a long journey, and like that first 5 minutes there, when we finally got into the room, I'd never seen 5 grown men cry like that quickly in my entire life. Just seeing their faces was like, sometimes I think about it and I kind of feel myself choking a little bit, but every single day, and when I mean every day, I mean every single day. It didn't matter if you were going to the hospital at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. If you were coming back at 2 a.m., midnight, there was always some type of activity going on with the kids. And every single day, they would come show you their drawings. They would come teach you, they would learn a new verse in the Quran. So they want to come recite it to you. Some of them would write poems and they want to read it to you. And so we started doing little mini activities with the kids every single day. It's like a drawing contest or who can memorize the most of the Quran, or like whatever like little things they work on, we would just incentivize it. And honestly, like that to me was by far the best and most beautiful, and also the most heartbreaking part of my day every single day, because despite everything going on, like the innocence of the children doesn't go away. It's still there every day. And when they gifted me all these pictures on my way out, like I came home with like 15 or 20 different like drawings and stuff, and I haven't been able to remove them from my bag. Like I zipped them up in a safe spot, and I'm scared to like take it out and damage it. So I was like, oh, I took them out, and I was looking at them, and I put them right back in. I was like, all right, I'll look at them one day. I'll find a beautiful place to put them one day.
That's absolutely beautiful. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. I think the lesson that it's a lesson I learn N times and forget it N+1 times, constantly. It's the need always to be humble in these experiences. Understand that this experience is an experience of service, with what that means, which is I'm there only to serve. It's an honor, it's a privilege, it's a blessing to be there, and to have been in these situations in multiple areas, and to understand that this experience was qualitatively different, and I was still able to serve. Probably will be the best experience of my life, I'm sure.
Sorry, I know we're on a time limit, but I'm so glad you said that, because one key thing that I got out of this was it changed my entire perspective on what it is to be a nurse and what it is to be in healthcare. Working with people who, despite doing this for free, and despite the conditions that they live in, the uncertainty of their families, and giving it their all. I mean, when we were getting food and eating, they would share their food with the patients so that we can eat. Like I can never look at being a nurse the same way again, or working in the health clear field, seeing the way their physicians, their nurses, their surgeons, just the way that they gave everything that they had. Humbling is absolutely the right word, and inspiring, and that's kind of the type of nurse and healthcare worker that I would like to be, is what I witnessed there.
Now, obviously, we know that Israel has broken international law by using white phosphorus. What were the effects from white phosphorus that you've seen from your Gaza patients? So, our last and final question is, what do you want your legacy to be, knowing that you have gone inside of Gaza? And adding on to that, are you planning on going back to Gaza anytime soon with PAMA or Med Global?
This is not really, and I mean this with the utmost. This is not about me or my legacy or about what I'm going to be able to put on my wall. Honestly, I genuinely don't care about any of that. I don't, like Dr. Ted said, I don't care what seat at the table I have. I don't care for my personal accomplishments in this, other than the fact that I just want a world where children are safe in their houses. I want a world where we can all get equal access to healthcare, to live peaceful lives. What I want out of this is I hope that our experience, or my experience, gets someone to do something that they were too scared to do, to push them in the right direction, to make some type of actual real change. I don't care about my legacy. I care about change. I care about bettering this world, and that's what I hope I can potentially be a part of. That's all that really matters.
Just one more question. Do you plan on going back to Gaza?
Absolutely. Without question. I wish I was still there. I wish I never left. Unfortunately, now the requirements effectively disqualify me. I'm sure you know what they are.
Does everybody in the audience know?
No, doesn't.
Do you guys know?
No.
No. Okay, so when I went, it was 2 weeks requirement, and fairly open to anyone with any passport, really. Now it's 4 weeks. If you have any Palestinian roots, whether you're Palestinian, your parents, your grandparents, you could and will
back
be.
to the level of your grandparents, right?
Yeah, back to your grandparents, and whatever means they have of identifying or whatever verifying technology they have I don't think it matters to them. But if you are for sure either going to be denied entry or exit. On top of this, if for whatever reason you did get in and they discover this while you're inside, there's absolutely zero guarantee that you will get out, and then you also cannot contact the State Department for help, even if you are a U.S. citizen. So for the time being, unfortunately, I can't go back. I hope
Who put this
Israelis have put this in effect. So these, unfortunately, disqualified the vast, I don't want to say the vast, but a significant percentage of volunteers that were able to go, either from Palestinian roots or having to commit to a minimum of 4 weeks. But inshallah, one day I genuinely hope that I can go back.
So, Israel is keeping track of all the people that have been entering?
Israel keeps track of everything. I mean, you'll hear a whole bunch of stuff about it being X, Y, and Z. The Israelis have their hand in every bit of these politics. Before this, when we went in, we were cleared by the Israelis. During this, you go in under the umbrella of the World Health Organization, but you're cleared by the Israelis. Everything is cleared by the Israelis. So I mean, anybody who tells you anything different really isn't telling. They either don't know or they're not telling the truth. I'm in the middle of I'll share with you. I'm in the middle of I'm in a dilemma right now because I have. This will be my last direction. The crossroads from as a young man, or many, as you get older, you lose the crossroads, and I made the last direction on this one. I've been lucky because I've been accepted to be in the next Freedom Flotilla. It's called Break the Siege 2. Sounds like a Taylor Swift concert. It isn't. We will leave from a port to be determined, and we will be either arrested or sunk. Somebody said, well, should we learn how to sail? I said, well, you better learn how to swim. But in doing that, being arrested, deported, this is just pure and simple civil disobedience. In doing that, I will be put on a list that excludes me from going back. Now, I'm going to be 78 years old in February, so my skill set as a pediatrician, putting pediatricians in Gaza, okay? So I could probably do what I need to do to help outside, but the presence there is such a boon to your soul that I have to make the decision about whether or not the civil disobedience will speak more than my presence inside or not. And I'll need to know that I'll be making that soon. But I'll go do something, is the direct answer to your question about going back.
You don't look a day over 68.
Thank you very much.
And I know we're going back and forth on the question, but what do you want your legacy to be remembered as?
Just a man who showed up, who came in, did what he could do to help.
warming my heart, knowing that you guys have driven 2 hours and a half to come here from Chicago. And, you know, it's just amazing knowing that we could even have you guys come here to speak with us today. And if anyone wants to take any pictures with the doctors, you know, please feel free to come up. And thank you so much for coming.
This was honestly beyond my expectations, and if I want to say something personal, it was almost a therapy for me, because as you know, we can't be there, but I think most everyone here has their souls crushed with what's happening. And I want to say something also for me personally, not necessarily Peoria, for Palestine. I cannot get over the fact that I did not hear a single hateful word or a single word here that came from a place of anger or dehumanization, anything. It was just service for humanity. And this is unbelievable. This is a lesson for all of us. So, I have just a couple of things to end this. Again, I can thank you all enough. This is an incredible learning experience. I want to remind everyone that our small group here, who we keep working on big things, we have a rally on Sunday at 1 p.m. on University and Main to protest the Netanyahu visit. Anyone, come and bring your friends and family. We cannot have this in our country. I want to give the last word to our president, the president of our Peoria for Palestine, for a few words here. Imam Mazhar, can you please?
Can I say one thing before you come?
Absolutely.
Does everybody know, Tahir mentioned something, he just slid through it. Does everybody know the story when he talked about handing the president a photograph?
No.
No?
Yes.
So Tahir was the one Palestinian that went to the Eid celebration at the White House, but he did what he was absolutely supposed to do. No pictures, no meal, nothing. And he was the one who walked out. He was the first, he was the only Palestinian in the room, and he walked out. You speak of speaking truth to power, irrespective of whether the power could understand it or not. He was the one who did that. It's an honor knowing him. He's the most self-effacing man I've ever met. He's wonderful.
And I just wanted to add this, because she mentioned the protests on Sunday and all the other future events. This is just more so a message of reassurance and to kind of give you that extra push. Every other day, every week max, I touch base with most of the people that I know with us, and the ones that I can still contact with. When I tell you they see everything that we do and we say, every time we amplify their voices, every time we share, every time we show up in the streets, every time we do these things, these are the things that, I don't want to say give them hope, because they are very faithful people that I've never seen faith like that, but it gives them a sense of strength, it gives them a sense of hope. So please, I know it's 9 months, I know it's exhausting, please continue to show up every day. Make your family, make your friends show up.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So, as we come to the close of this profoundly moving event, we're left with very heavy hearts with these emotional testimonies. And everything that needed to be said has been said. But reflecting upon the land that we live in, I've been contemplating for these past few days the efforts of these heroes on the grounds of Gaza, with everything that's going on, the brutality, the massacres. And I've been thinking, where are the human rights? Where are the animal rights that we fight about? Where are the racial equality rights, the gender rights, freedom, democracy, the rule of law? And only one thing comes to mind, that they are all buried in Gaza. That Gaza exposed the double standards and the hypocrisy of this world. I'd like to thank our team. I wasn't of much help. I had my own things going on, pipe bursts at home and things like that. But the amazing team, there are too many to name, but like I always say, they're the apples of my eyes. For all of your efforts, for the strength and the faith that you motivate, for your amazing championing of humanity. And along with that, I'd like to thank our dear heroes, the doctors, Dr. John, Nurse Hamza, Brother Abdullah, Dr. Thair. May you be written as those who are raised on the Day of Judgment, as people who basically fought for the sake of giving humanity humanity a chance to thrive. And may the world remember you forever, despite you not wanting anything on your walls, and despite you not wanting anything in blogs or vlogs. But may the world remember you for the giants that you are. With this, I just want to say, may Allah bless you all. Thank you for attending. Please keep tabs on the events that happen under the umbrella of Peoria for Palestine. We have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page, we're on TikTok. We're not doing the trendy dances, but we're up to giving the messages and propagating and discussing the latest that's happening, in the news and in our localities. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, our team. Once again, every single City Hall meeting, they're there with their red t-shirts saying, ceasefire now, ceasefire now, ceasefire now. And at the end of the day, even the suppressed voices one day, come out of that suppression. And they come to light. And eventually they become the normalcy and the majority. So with this, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you all. Free, free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
وسيجعل الله بعد عسر يسرا وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وجزاكم الله خيرا.